The chandelier above me trembled with 1,000 glass breaths when I heard his voice behind my back. "Lena?" I turned. 8 months pregnant, in a black dress that skimmed my belly like a tide. I shouldn't have come to the art fundraiser alone. But my sister had begged off with the flu, and I was tired of hiding from rooms that used to belong to me. I held my mocktail glass steady. Evan. My ex-husband still wore the same cologne. Cedar, clean, a memory that refused to fade. He looked older by a year and sharper by 10. His jaw was clean-shaven, his eyes soft around the edges, the way they always got when he was about to say something gentle and cruel. "I didn't know you were back in the city," he said. "I didn't know you knew how to read RSVPs, I answered, and smiled because that was safer than bleeding. A hand slid into his. The man beside him was slim, mid-30s, cream blazer, restless eyes that scanned the room and then settled on my belly, then on my face. He was handsome in a way that drew a line of light across everything around him. He squeezed Evan's fingers like a quiet announcement. "Lena," Evan said, clearing his throat. "This is..." The man leaned in, grinning. "I'm Theo." He offered a hand. "Evans." He glanced at Evan, then back at me. "Wife." The word landed like a dropped plate. Conversations around us faltered, then rushed on a beat too loud. Someone laughed near the bar, a champagne cork sprinted to the ceiling, and a trio of donors pretended not to listen while trying to drown in their glasses. I blinked. My mouth formed a word and lost it before it could stand. "Congratulations," I finally said, because that's what well-mannered ghosts say when they meet the living. I shook Theo's hand. It was warm, a little nervous, the grip of someone who had decided to be fearless tonight and hadn't told his palms. "Thank you," Theo said. He glowed. He looked at Evan like a lighthouse looks at a ship. We did it last month. City Hall." Very us. Very us. I thought of all the ways Evan had once defined us to me. Predictable, presentable, permanent. I tasted copper. A curator on a raised platform tapped a mic and called for attention. "If we could gather, please." I stepped slightly aside, but Theo turned with me, his smile easy, his eyes curious. "When are you due?" "In 4 weeks," I said. "Wow, you look amazing." He meant it. The kindness in his face cut me open even softer than the word he'd just used. Evan's eyes flicked to my stomach and back, like a secret passing a window. For a second, a real second, there was recognition there. Not just that I was pregnant. Recognition of the shape of fate. He cleared his throat. "Lena, are you..." "I'm fine," I said too quickly. The mic squealed and the curator launched into a welcome. I heard none of it. My pulse pounded. I had promised myself I wouldn't tell him tonight. I had promised myself I would wait, that I would choose a place with chairs that didn't cost as much as a month's rent and lighting that didn't make every truth look like a performance. But life loves a stage. Beside the hors d'oeuvres table, a woman in a red dress raised her phone to take a selfie and accidentally captured our triangle. 3 figures. The ex-wife with the moon belly, the ex-husband standing half a step toward her, and the new spouse who looked like a happy secret with legs. The camera flash popped. The room brightened, then dimmed, and somewhere a violinist began a song I couldn't place. Theo linked his arm through Evan's. "Babe, they're about to start the bidding," he whispered, and that private word toppled the last of my breath. Babe. Husband. Wife. I checked my phone. A new email sat at the top of my inbox from an address I didn't recognize. records@northshorefertility.com. Subject: addendum request, consent agreement. For a second, the screen blurred. Then it snapped into focus. I didn't open it. Not yet. The timing felt like a dare. Theo's gaze dipped toward my clutch. "You okay?" "I just need some air," I said. Evan took a half step forward. "Do you want me to?" "I think she said she's fine," Theo chimed in, not unkindly, just protective. In that way new loves are, territorial without quite meaning to be. "I did," I said. I smiled again, brittle as spun sugar. "Enjoy your night." I turned before my manners cracked and moved through a maze of shoulders and perfumes and polished floors. My baby shifted, a slow swim under my ribs. I held the curve under my dress like I could steady both of us with one palm. Behind me, a voice from the mic said, "And now our first piece." The room swallowed their names, but the word wife clung to me, like glitter you can't wash off. The bathroom was cold and bright, a cave made of mirrors. I locked myself in the last stall and sat down, holding my breath until the world stopped tilting. 8 months ago, the clinic nurse had placed a gloved hand on mine and said, "You'll feel pressure." And I had. And then warmth. And then the quiet miracle of hope stitching itself back together inside me. We had signed those forms before the divorce papers were even a rumor. In case, I had said, and Evan had said, in case. We had banked our future against bad weather. When the bad weather came, we broke. But the future was still frozen, waiting. I unlocked my phone, thumb hovering, then I opened the email. Addendum request. Consent agreement. Dear Miss Morris, please review the attached addendum regarding consent for use of embryos A12 and A13. Signatures required from both genetic contributors. Both genetic contributors. I scrolled. There was a PDF icon. A line I couldn't ignore leaped out from the preview text. Per request of Mr. Evan Carter's spouse. I stood up too fast. The world pinwheeled and righted. My hand went instinctively to my stomach, then to my mouth. Per request of Mr. Evan Carter's spouse. Spouse, not partners, not emergency contact. Spouse. I heard the restroom door open. Voices floated in, women checking lipstick, swapping gossip. Then another voice, quiet, low, male, familiar. Is she okay? Theo, I don't know, Evan said. She looked surprised. Anyone would. Theo's laugh was a soft bubble. You didn't exactly send a save the date. We kept it private for a reason. To keep me safe or to keep you comfortable? Theo washed his hands for too long, the water a nervous river. I'm kidding, he added, not sounding like he meant it. Silence. Then, she's pregnant, Evan said. Not a question, not wonder, a fact he was trying to file somewhere that didn't hurt. You saw the size of her belly, babe? The paper towel dispenser coughed. Do you think? No, Evan cut in fast. She would have told me. He paused, and I could hear his doubt turning on itself like a wheel. We haven't spoken in months. I swallowed. My throat felt like I'd swallowed a stone. I had written him a long letter and never sent it. I had composed a text at 2 a.m. and deleted it at 2:02. I had convinced myself I wanted to choose this alone. I had not considered he could be introducing a husband to the world before our future finished thawing. Theo again, gentler. You two did IVF. Does any of that still connect you? Evan's answer came slow. We signed consent together. There were embryos. I don't know what she... He broke off. It doesn't matter. It's her life now. I stared at the email. Addendum. Signatures required. The clinic wanted both of us. I ran my finger over the glass, like it would rub away the phrase, per request of. My baby rolled again, a soft wave that made me bite my lip. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, and behind it, a memory. A paper in Evan's neat lawyerly print, the day we checked the boxes at the clinic. If separation occurs, if divorce occurs, if death occurs. We had joked about it then, two immortals at a kitchen table. He had signed his name with that elegant loop on the C. I had signed mine with a dot pressed too hard on the I. The bathroom door swung. Laughter swelled, then dimmed. Evan and Theo left without washing the doubt off their hands. I stepped to the sink and looked at the woman in the mirror. My hair had escaped its pins. My lipstick was still unbothered, as if it had watched marriages rise and fall and yawned. I pressed a cool towel to my neck. The baby hiccuped once, twice, a tiny metronome. From the stall, my clutch buzzed. A text this time, from an unknown number. We need to talk about the consent. Tonight. Before he does. SS, I stared. There were so many S's in our old life. Sophie from the clinic, Susan the office manager, Sam the best man at our wedding who gave a toast that made my mother cry. The S that mattered most was a name I hadn't spoken in a year. Shame. Evan's little brother, who had always looked at us like he knew a future we didn't. A future that had apparently arrived wearing a cream blazer and calling himself wife. I texted back before I could second guess. Who is this? 3 dots. Then, Sophie, RN. I'm off at 9. Don't sign anything yet. It's about the addendum and a withdrawal notice that doesn't match your signature. The room tilted again, but this time I planted my feet and wrote it. A withdrawal notice. A signature that wasn't mine. Outside, the silent auction was starting. Bids would go up, hands would rise, art would change owners. In here, everything I thought I owned felt suddenly precarious, including the story about who had left whom and why. I tucked my phone away and opened the door. As I walked back into the noise and light, I made myself a promise. I would not fall apart where he could see. I would not give them a scene. Not tonight. I would learn the terms. I would gather the papers. I would look at the loop on the sea and ask why it didn't look like the one on all the old forms. At the edge of the room, Evan and Theo stood laughing with a donor I used to know. Theo's hand rested on Evan's chest, easy and claimed. For a heartbeat too long, Evan's eyes found mine. He looked away first. I placed my glass on a passing tray. I straightened my dress. I walked toward them with a smile I had ironed sharp. "Congratulations," I said again, but this time the word rang different in my mouth. It sounded like a bell you ring before a court opens. "There's something I need to tell you both." They turned to me together. Two people who thought their story had already been told. "I'm due in 4 weeks," I said, holding his gaze. "And before you panic, no, I don't want anything from you tonight, but I will need your signature soon." Evan blinked. "For what?" "The thing you started," I said softly, "and the thing I finished." Around us, the violin changed songs. Somewhere, a camera flashed. The room held its breath. I smiled. "Do you want to hear the whole truth, or do you want to keep pretending this is simple?" Because either way, tonight was only the opening scene. I never thought I would be the woman who carries a child alone. But here I am, Lena Morris, 34 years old, 8 months pregnant, and trying to hold my head high in a city where every corner reminds me of what I lost. People look at me differently now, sometimes with pity, sometimes with admiration. Strangers smile at my belly like it's a promise, but they don't know the whole story. They don't know that the father of this baby is the man who once swore eternity to me, then chose another life before our future had time to thaw. Evan and I were married for 7 years. On paper, we looked like a perfect match. Him, a rising attorney with a calm, calculating mind. Me, a marketing manager with too many dreams and not enough time. We bought a townhouse with blue shutters. We traveled when we could, and we laughed more often than we fought. Or at least that's what it looked like from the outside. Behind the doors, our home was quieter. Evan had this way of avoiding conflict until it buried itself inside me like a splinter. If something hurt, he'd smooth it over with reason. "Don't take it personally. You're overthinking. Let's talk later." Later never came. And slowly, I became smaller inside my own marriage, waiting for a moment that never arrived. But the biggest silence was the one that lived in our bedroom. For years we tried for a child. Month after month, test after test, I watched hope wilt. Doctors said unexplained infertility, as if mystery could be an answer. We sat in waiting rooms full of women with swollen bellies and men tapping restless knees, and I told myself we were in this together. When the doctor suggested IVF, I clung to it like a lifeline. We signed the consent forms, held hands while they froze our embryos, and whispered about baby names like children planning futures in the dark. I believed those embryos were our chance, our proof that love was still alive. But love wasn't. Somewhere between injections and disappointments, Evan slipped away. He stayed late at work, traveled more, spoke less. And then one day, he looked at me with eyes that no longer saw a partner, just a shadow of who I used to be. "I can't do this anymore, Lena," he said. I remember sitting at the kitchen table staring at a mug of cold coffee. "Do what?" "Pretend we're okay." His voice didn't shake. Mine did when I answered. "Was it ever pretend?" He didn't reply. And that silence was louder than any fight we could have had. The divorce was swift, clinical. Papers signed, rings returned. I kept the house. He kept his freedom. We barely spoke afterward, except through lawyers and short, brittle emails. But the embryos remained. 6 tiny frozen beginnings, waiting. I thought about them every day. The day after the divorce was finalized, I sat in the clinic parking lot for 2 hours before I could make myself walk inside. "Are you sure?" the nurse asked gently. "I'm sure," I whispered. "It's now or never." And so I carried forward what we created, even if the we no longer existed. Now, at 34, I live in a small apartment with peeling paint and neighbors who argue through the walls. I gave up my marketing job after the nausea made morning commutes unbearable, and I work part-time from home, stretching every dollar like taffy. I have swollen ankles, a sore back, and a heart that hasn't decided whether it's broken or just bruised. My mother calls every night to remind me that a baby is a blessing, no matter the circumstances. My friends invite me out less often, not because they don't love me, but because they don't know what to say when conversation turns to husbands and promotions and vacations I can no longer afford. Still, when I place my hand on my belly and feel the baby kick, I know I chose right. This child is not a mistake. This child is my defiance, my hope stitched into flesh. What I didn't expect was to see Evan again, not like this. Not with a man at his side calling himself wife. Not with paperwork from the clinic arriving in my inbox the same night. It's almost cruel how fate spins circles around us. I thought I was done with him. I thought our story had ended. But carrying his child has tied me to him in ways neither of us can ignore. And now, I'm left with questions that gnaw at me in the dark. Did he know I used the embryos? Why is the clinic asking for his signature again? And what exactly is hidden in that addendum Sophie warned me about? I've always been the one who bends, who compromises, who forgives. But motherhood changes everything. I'm not just fighting for myself anymore. I'm fighting for someone who hasn't even opened their eyes yet. For the first time, I'm ready to stop being silent. The city looked rinsed when I left the fundraiser. Rain beating on car hoods, streetlights smeared like watercolor. I walked instead of calling a car. The air had that post-storm breath that makes everything feel possible and dangerous at once. Sophie texted, "Harbor Diner, across from the clinic, 9:15. I'm off in 5. The Harbor Diner wasn't really across from North Shore Fertility, more like diagonally sulking from it. A silver airstream stretched into a real building, neon coffee cup blinking in the window. I took a corner booth, the vinyl stuck to the back of my knees. A waitress who'd been there since the 90s poured me decaf without asking and left the pot. Through the rain-streaked glass, I could see the clinic's sign glow soft blue. I knew that building well. North Shore lives in a former bank. Marble steps, brass rail still cool even in summer, old vault converted into a cryo lab. Upstairs, consultation rooms with watercolors of anonymous tulips. Downstairs, the rooms that matter, the rooms where hope is counted, labeled, frozen. When I think of the clinic, I remember eucalyptus in the air, the hum of machines, the way doors whisper shut like secrets. Sophie slid into the booth opposite me, hair in a messy bun, scrub top hidden under a gray hoodie. She looked tired, alert, scared. "You look beautiful," she said. "I look like someone who put on mascara to walk into a hurricane," I said. She didn't smile. She leaned forward. "Has anyone from the clinic called you today?" "Just the email," I said. "Addendum request. Signatures. Per request of Mr. Evan Carter's spouse." The words still scratched my throat. Sophie exhaled. I saw the addendum come through the system. I also saw something else I shouldn't have seen. She glanced toward the counter where the waitress was counting forks, then back at me. "There was a withdrawal notice on file this week. It was entered, then the entry was reversed. The signature on the digital pad says Lena M. It's not your hand." My fingers went cold around the coffee mug. "A withdrawal for what?" "For embryos A12 and A13, she spoke them like names. It was paired with a courier entry, chain of custody logged, then flagged as invalid before release. If I hadn't been at the desk covering lunch, I wouldn't have noticed the timestamps." "What does that mean? Someone tried to take them?" "Someone started the process to have them transported to an outside lab," Sophie said, voice low. "The release was initiated under a third-party clinic in New Jersey. It got halted because our system automatically cross-checks consent. The new addendum is convenient." "Consent from both of us," I whispered. "Exactly." Sophie glanced at my belly, then back up. "You used A10, you're carrying A10. The addendum mentions the remaining embryos, and a clause about disposition in case of remarriage." Her mouth tightened. "That clause doesn't exist on your original paperwork." I felt the diner tilt under me like a boat. "Who added it?" "That's the thing." Sophie flattened a napkin and started tracing a square on it with her finger like she needed to draw a map. "The document metadata shows an upload from a secure account with admin privileges. I don't have access to the logs, but I know the initials." "Whose?" "DK, she said. Director of Operations, Dana Keller." The name meant money and smooth emails. Dana was the one who sent holiday cards with embossed snowflakes and called us family when the bill was due. I swallowed, tasted tin. Sophie kept going because now that she'd started, she couldn't stop. The courier form had a notary stamp image attached. The stamp ID belongs to an external notary service used by, she hesitated, Carter & Reed, the firm your ex works for. I stared. At the counter, the waitress turned on an ancient radio. A Motown song flooded the chrome and tile. I couldn't feel my hands. "Say that again," I said. "The stamp ID traces back to a notary who does bulk work for Carter and Reed," Sophie said. "It doesn't mean Evan did anything. It means someone used their vendor. It could be a coincidence." Her eyes said she didn't believe in coincidences. Not tonight. I pushed my cup away. The baby shifted, a slow elbow against my side. But the release was reversed. "Because the system flagged the mismatch," Sophie said. "It's like someone put the cart in motion and then realized they needed a missing piece. My signature." "And his," she said. "The addendum is the missing piece." Outside, a bus hissed to the curb. Rain glittered in its headlights. Across the street, the clinic's second-floor light flicked on. A silhouette moved behind a blind. I knew that window. Dana's office faced the avenue. Sophie followed my gaze. "She works late," she said. "Or she wants us to know she works late." "Why tell me this?" I asked finally. "Because I've handed people too many pens and watched them sign away things they didn't fully understand," Sophie said. "Because you always asked questions other patients were afraid to ask. Because you're 8 months pregnant and the rules should bend around you, not the other way around." I inhaled until my ribs ached, then let it go. Fear had been my companion for months, sharp, useful, keeping me small and careful. What bloomed now wasn't fear. It was suspicion braided with anger, a steadier thing. "I want to see the paperwork," I said. "You can't. Not legally. Not without a request in writing, and even then they'll drag their feet." Sophie paused. "But you can ask for a counseling session, and you can bring someone. Like a lawyer," I said. "Or a camera," she said, surprising me. "People behave when they think something is being recorded." I slid my phone across the table. "Will photos help?" "I can't give you anything," she said, "but I can tell you what to look for. Read the header numbers. Every doc has an internal code. If codes jump, it means something was swapped or added." "Like a clause about remarriage," I said. She nodded. The waitress reappeared with a slice of pecan pie she hadn't asked me if I wanted. "For the little one," she said cheerfully, and left it there like a blessing. We ate in silence for a moment, two women on the edge of a war neither of us had planned to fight. Across the street, the clinic doors opened, and a man in a dark coat hurried down the steps, holding his phone to his ear. He paused under the awning and glanced toward the diner. Even blurred by rain, I recognized the line of his shoulders. "Evan." My stomach lurched. Sophie's eyes widened. "Do you want me to?" "No," I said. "Let him come." My voice surprised me, even, steady, as if the stage lights were finally on and I remembered my lines. He pushed into the diner, shook rain from his hair, scanned the booths. His eyes landed on me, then on Sophie, connecting dots. He approached like a man walking into a room he used to own. "Lena," he said. Up close, he looked tired. Not guilty, tired. "I saw you cross the street." "You were in Dana's office," I said. He blinked. "How do you—" "Your firm's notary stamp appears on a courier form for our embryos," I said, keeping my voice low. "There's an addendum in my inbox that mentions a clause we never signed. Sit down, Evan, or I swear I will stand up in this diner and say the words out loud." He sat. Sophie did not introduce herself. She didn't need to. He knew her face, and if he didn't, he understood the type. The person who knows where the bodies are buried and where the freezers are locked. "I had a meeting," he said carefully. "Dana called me. She said there was an administrative question about the files. She mentioned you'd be contacted." "Administrative?" I echoed. "Is that what we're calling altered contracts now?" "I didn't alter anything," he said. "Theo and I," he inhaled, "we asked about the embryos because I wanted to be informed. That's all. The notary service is used by the firm. If their stamp is attached, it's because Dana routed something through standard channels." Sophie's mouth flattened. "Standard channels don't include adding clauses post hoc." Evan looked between us. "I don't know what Dana did, but I didn't sign any withdrawal. Neither did Theo." His jaw flexed. "And I didn't know you were pregnant, Lena. That's the truth." Silence hung, sticky and loud. I reached into my bag and placed the printed copy of our original consent on the table. I'd kept it like a talisman, folded and refolded, creased along the lines we promised each other. "This is what we signed," I said. "If Dana's version says anything else, it's fraud." Evan's eyes scanned the page without touching it, the way someone looks at a family photo after a funeral. He swallowed. I'll handle it. No, I said. We'll handle it. In daylight. In rooms with cameras, like Sophie said. He glanced at Sophie, then back at me. Tomorrow morning. 10 a.m., I said. And bring Theo. His eyebrows rose. Why? Because whatever this is, it involves your present as much as our past. I won't let anyone, not Dana, not your firm, tell our story for us. The clinic is the stage. We set the script. For the first time tonight, something like respect flickered in his face. He nodded. 10? He stood, hesitated like he wanted to say something else, then just said, good night, and left, trailing rain and 100 unasked questions. Sophie blew out a breath. That was not the fight, I said. Just the lighting check. We paid, stepped back into the wet night, and crossed toward the blue glow of North Shore. The building loomed, familiar and strange, the repurposed vault that kept our futures in stainless steel and nitrogen. I pictured the hallways we'd walk tomorrow, the chairs arranged just so, the silver handles polished, the smile Dana would wear that didn't touch her eyes. I pictured Theo sitting beside Evan, fingers laced, watching the story expand to include him whether he wanted it to or not. The city hummed around us. My baby kicked, sure and strong. I laid a hand there, on the place where the next chapter was already alive. See you at 10, I told Sophie. She squeezed my arm. Wear shoes you can stand in. They try to make you wait. I've been waiting for months, I said. Tomorrow, I stop. I turned toward home. Behind me, the clinic lights burned, stage lights over a set I knew too well. I wasn't walking into a room I used to belong to anymore. I was building a new one, right on top of the old, and this time, everyone would see. The clinic smelled the same as it always had, eucalyptus laced with antiseptic, like someone was trying too hard to convince us that hope was clean. But today it felt different. Today the air was heavy, stage lights pressing down on everyone inside. At exactly 10 o'clock, I walked into North Shore's lobby. My dress was simple, gray, my belly leading the way. Sophie had already slipped me a nod from behind the reception desk, her face carefully blank. A few patients sat with clipboards, flipping pages without reading. They looked like I used to, nervous, waiting for their name to be called, waiting for their life to start. The elevator opened. Evan and Theo stepped out. He wore his lawyer's uniform, navy suit, crisp shirt. Theo wore pale blue, soft enough to look approachable, sharp enough to look serious. He gave me a tentative smile, but his hand tightened around Evan's arm. Morning, Evan said. It came out like a verdict. Morning, I replied. My pulse tapped hard in my throat. Ready? Theo answered before he could. We don't really know what we're walking into, do we? No, I said. That's the point. Dana Keller appeared in the hallway like she'd been waiting behind a curtain for her cue. She was in her early 50s, hair silver at the edges, blazer too expensive for comfort. Her smile was thin, professional, designed to soothe. Miss Morris, Mr. Carter, she said warmly. And Mr. Theo Carter, Theo supplied, his husband. He said it clearly like a line rehearsed. Dana's smile didn't falter, but her eyes flickered, just for a second. Of course, she said. Come in, let's review everything together. Her office was all glass and pale wood, tulip paintings hung like shields. She gestured to chairs across from her desk. Evan sat in the middle, Theo on one side, me on the other. Sophie slipped in behind us with a clipboard, pretending to be just another nurse, but I knew she was here to witness. Now, Dana began, folding her hands. There's been some confusion regarding the disposition of embryos A12 and A13. Confusion? I repeated. My voice carried more steel than I meant it to. Yes, Dana said smoothly. Our system flagged a discrepancy, so we prepared an addendum to clarify the consent parameters. Nothing unusual, just standard housekeeping. Housekeeping doesn't invent new clauses, I said, sliding the folded paper of our original consent across her desk. This is what we signed. Show me where it says anything about remarriage. Dana didn't pick it up. She glanced at Evan. As you know, circumstances change. Our agreements evolve to reflect that. No, I cut in. Contracts don't evolve unless both parties agree, and we didn't. Theo leaned forward, frowning. Wait, you're saying there's something added that wasn't there before? Dana's smile grew tighter. We amended the language to cover situations like this. It ensures clarity, especially given that Mr. Carter has remarried. Language to cover situations, I echoed. You mean language to take my child's future out of my hands? Your child? Dana's tone shifted, sharp, then smoothed again. Miss Morris, please, you've already exercised your rights with embryo A10. The remaining embryos involve shared genetic material. Both parties have equal say. Equal say. My stomach turned. Evan finally spoke. Dana, did my firm's notary handle anything here? She blinked. We sometimes outsource notarization, yes. Did they notarize a withdrawal form? He pressed. Dana's eyes cooled. An error was entered and quickly reversed. The embryos were never in jeopardy. It was simply a misfile. A misfile with my forged signature, I snapped. That cracked the mask. Dana's voice hardened. No one forged anything. A digital pad error, perhaps. It happens. No, Sophie said quietly from the back. Everyone turned. Her voice was steady. That pad doesn't autocorrect signatures. It records them as written. Someone traced her name. Dana's eyes narrowed. You're out of line, nurse. I'm out of patience, Sophie said. And so is she. The room throbbed with silence. Theo looked between us, confusion and anger warring in his face. Evan, I said softly, they tried to move our embryos. Without me. Without you, apparently. The addendum is their way of covering it up. His jaw clenched. He looked at Dana. Is that true? She held his gaze, professional mask snapping back into place. Mr. Carter, this clinic has served thousands of families with the utmost integrity. If Miss Morris feels uncomfortable, she is welcome to seek legal counsel. But spreading unfounded accusations only harms her own case. Her case? I echoed. This isn't a courtroom. This is my life. Evan stood suddenly, palms flat on her desk. If a document exists that doesn't match the original contract, I want it pulled. Now, in front of us. Dana's lips tightened. That's not procedure. Neither is forging signatures, he shot back. For the first time, I saw something crack in her. Just a flicker, a shadow of calculation. She wasn't expecting him to stand with me. Not here. Not yet. Theo's voice was quiet, but sharp. Evan, what does this mean for us? Evan didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on Dana's. I leaned forward, belly pressing against the desk edge. Tell me the truth, Dana. Who ordered the withdrawal? Her silence told me everything. Finally, she said, some things are bigger than you, Miss Morris. Some families are meant to move forward. Others hold on too tightly to the past. And in that moment, I knew. She wasn't just covering up a clerical error. She was working for someone with power, someone who wanted those embryos enough to risk everything. The betrayal wasn't just hers. It was systemic, planned, and it had only just begun. The clinic should have been a sanctuary. Instead, it became a stage. 2 days after the tense meeting in Dana's office, I got a call. Not from her, not from Evan, but from a journalist. Miss Morris, this is Julia from City Herald. We've obtained information regarding disputes over embryo custody at North Shore Fertility. Would you like to comment before we publish? The room spun. Embryo custody. Disputes. Words that belonged in private whispers, now dangling in front of headlines. I know, I stammered. Where did you? Your name will be in the story regardless, Julia said, not unkindly. We're going to print in 48 hours. The clinic issued a statement this morning. You should see it. My hand shook as I opened my laptop. The clinic's homepage glowed with corporate calm. North Shore Fertility responds to misinformation. Recent claims circulating online regarding patient agreements are unfounded. The clinic follows rigorous ethical and legal standards. In unique cases where genetic contributors are no longer in a marital relationship, updated consent ensures clarity for all parties involved. Beneath the statement was a photo. Evan and Theo leaving the clinic, hand in hand. They weren't smiling, but the caption might as well have been written in neon. Prominent attorney Evan Carter and husband advocate for transparency in reproductive rights. My stomach clenched. Without saying a word, they had become the face of the story. And me, I was a shadow. The woman left out. The woman implied to be clinging, unreasonable, obstructing progress. The phone buzzed again. My mother this time. Lena, what is this I'm reading? That Evan and his husband are fighting for embryos? Are you involved? Please tell me it isn't true. It's not the way it sounds, I whispered. But the world never cares how it sounds to the person inside. The real blow came the next morning. I was scheduled for a routine ultrasound. Sophie met me in the lobby, her jaw tight. Brace yourself, she muttered. What now? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I saw it when we stepped into the waiting area. Cameras, microphones, reporters clustered near the reception desk. Voices rising like gulls fighting over scraps. Flashbulbs popped. Patients shrank into corners, whispering, covering their faces. And at the center of it all, Evan and Theo standing with Dana. Dana wore her calmest blazer and a necklace that glittered under the fluorescent lights. She gestured like a conductor, orchestrating the chaos into a scene. "Thank you for coming," she said to the cameras. "We're committed to clarity and compassion in all family matters." Theo's voice carried, warm, rehearsed. "Families come in many forms. Love is love. We just want the same opportunity as anyone else to make decisions together, openly, responsibly." A reporter shoved a mic closer. "Mr. Carter, how does your ex-wife fit into this?" My name hadn't been spoken yet, but the word ex-wife hit like a slap. Evan hesitated. His jaw flexed. His lawyerly instincts screamed caution. "We respect her privacy," he said finally. Respect. Privacy. Words that meant nothing with every lens aimed at us. "Is it true she's already pregnant with one of the embryos?" Another reporter pressed. That was it. The detonation. Gas rippled through the lobby. Phones lifted higher. Whispers turned sharp. I froze. My hand went instinctively to my belly, heavy under my dress, and suddenly every camera swiveled toward me. "There she is!" someone shouted. Sophie tried to shield me, but the crowd surged. Lights blinded me. Microphones hovered like daggers. "Ms. Morris, is it true you carried an embryo without your ex-husband's consent? Are you denying Evan Carter his right as a father? How do you respond to claims that you're clinging to the past?" Their words shredded me, each one twisting truth into spectacle. Patients stared, staff whispered, and Dana, standing tall beside Evan and Theo, didn't move to stop it. If anything, her lips curved just slightly, as if this was the performance she'd scripted all along. I swallowed hard, heat flooding my face. Shame and fury wrestled in my chest. My baby kicked, startled by the noise. "Leave her alone," Sophie barked, but her voice was drowned out. I wanted to scream, to explain, to tell them about forged signatures and hidden clauses. But all I could do was stand, stomach huge, tears threatening, as the world painted me the villain in my own story. And in that moment, I realized, Dana hadn't just tried to steal my embryos. She was stealing the narrative. Twisting it so Evan and Theo looked noble, while I looked desperate. I had walked in carrying life. I was walking out carrying disgrace. But disgrace can be fuel, and humiliation has a way of sharpening resolve. I wiped my eyes, forced myself to look straight at the nearest camera, and said one thing before turning away. "This isn't the truth, and I will prove it." The room erupted. Questions chased me out the door, but behind the noise I felt a strange calm. They wanted a spectacle. They had one. Now it was my turn to write Act 2. I barely remembered how I made it home that day. The reporters, the cameras, the questions, they clung to me like smoke long after I shut the door behind me. My apartment felt too small, too silent, as if the walls had absorbed the echoes of the lobby. I dropped my bag, leaned against the counter, and slid down to the floor. My belly pressed into my thighs, my breath shallow. 8 months pregnant, and I felt like a criminal. They had painted me desperate, manipulative, selfish, the ex-wife clinging to the past, the woman who stole an embryo. I pressed my palms to the cool tile. "I didn't steal anything," I whispered, but the only one listening was the baby shifting inside me. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes I saw flashes. Dana's thin smile, Theo's careful warmth, Evan's silence. Most of all, the cameras. That red light blinking like an accusation. By morning, the story had spread. Online headlines screamed, "Ex-wife at center of embryo battle. Prominent attorney and husband face legal storm with former spouse. Pregnant woman defies consent laws in bitter IVF dispute." The comments were worse. "She's crazy, clout chasing with a baby. Poor Evan, imagine your ex doing this to you." I read them until my hands shook too hard to scroll. I threw the phone across the couch and buried my face in my pillow. For days I stayed inside. Curtains drawn. Meals forgotten. My mother called, her voice worried. "Lena, you have to eat. You have to rest. The baby needs you." "I'm fine," I lied, but my voice cracked. I wasn't fine. My ankles swelled, my back screamed, nights blurred into days. The world outside moved on without me, and inside I unraveled. On the third night the cramps started, sharp, sudden, clawing across my abdomen. I doubled over, gasping, not labor, not yet. Too early. But my body was warning me. I crawled to the phone, called Sophie. She answered on the first ring. "Lena, I can't." My voice broke. "It hurts." Breathe, she said firmly. I'm coming, don't move. By the time she arrived, the cramps had eased, leaving me trembling, drenched in sweat. She helped me to the couch, pressed a cool cloth to my forehead. You're under too much stress, she said softly. Your body's telling you to stop. I can't stop, I whispered. If I stop, they win. Sophie's eyes were kind but serious. If you collapse, nobody wins. Not you. Not the baby. You have to choose your battles. Her words cut deep. Choose your battles. I had been fighting shadows, headlines, whispers, the weight of humiliation. But the real enemy wasn't the public. It was Dana. The forged documents. The lies buried in contracts. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, one hand on my belly. The baby kicked, steady, as if reminding me of the only truth that mattered. I wasn't alone. I thought of the girl I used to be. Quiet, accommodating, shrink so Evan could shine. That girl would have broken by now. She would have let shame bury her. But motherhood was carving me into someone new. Someone harder. Someone who could bend without snapping. I whispered into the dark, we'll survive this. Both of us. And in the stillness I felt it, not hope exactly, but resolve. If Dana wanted to play in public, so would I. But not as the ex-wife clinging to the past, as the mother carrying the future. The storm broke on a Tuesday morning. I was eating dry cereal from the box when Sophie called. Her voice was taut, urgent. Lena, you need to hear this, and you need to sit down. I sank onto the couch, my belly heavy against my thighs. What is it? I stayed late last night to review the digital logs. You were right, the signature wasn't yours, but it wasn't Evan's either. My breath caught. Then whose? She hesitated. I traced the authorization request. It didn't come from Evan's account. It came from his brother's, Shane Carter. Shane. The name crashed into me like a forgotten dream. Evan's younger brother, the golden child. Charming, reckless, adored by their parents. He had stood at our wedding toasting with a grin too wide. He had flirted with my bridesmaids, whispered jokes to me when Evan was buried in work. Always half in the light, half in the shadows. Shane? I whispered. Yes. His name shows on the access log. He shouldn't even have access. But Dana cleared his credentials. That's why the notary was pulled through Carter and Reed. The firm does side work for Shane's startup. I gripped the couch cushion until my knuckles burned. Why would he? Because, Sophie said, her voice grim, Shane is listed as the intended recipient on the courier request. The words didn't make sense at first. They rattled around my skull, sharp and slippery. Recipient? Lena, Sophie said softly. He tried to claim your embryos. Under his name. That night I couldn't sit still. I paced the apartment, memories colliding. Shane, at Christmas, drunk and whispering, if Evan doesn't give you what you want, maybe I should. Shane, texting me months after the divorce, just checking in. You deserve better. Shane, with that crooked smile that always felt like a dare. It wasn't admiration, it was obsession. And Dana, she had given him the key. I wanted to scream, to break something, to storm into his office and demand answers. But all I could do was breathe, for the baby, for myself. The next day, Evan showed up at my apartment. He looked wrecked, tie loosened, eyes dark. Lena, we need to talk. I didn't invite him in, but he stepped past me anyway. Old habits. What? I said, arms crossed. He ran a hand through his hair. I confronted Dana. She swore everything was above board, but when I pressed, she cracked. She admitted Shane was involved. That he... Evan stopped, swallowed. That he wants custody of the embryos, claims he and Theo. Theo? The word burst out of me. He shook his head quickly. No, Theo doesn't know. This is Shane's idea, not his. He's been pushing Dana, saying he has rights as my brother, as... He faltered. As family. Family. That word twisted until it was unrecognizable. I laughed. A harsh, broken sound. Your brother forged my name to steal my embryos, and Dana helped him. And you expect me to believe you knew nothing? I didn't. He snapped. I swear. I never would have. Wouldn't you? My voice trembled. You walked away from me. You walked into Theo's arms without looking back. Why wouldn't you let Shane clean up what you left behind? He flinched like I'd slapped him. Silence stretched, raw and jagged. Finally, he whispered, because even after everything, I never stopped believing those embryos were ours. Not his, not Dana's. Ours. For a moment, I saw the man I had loved, tired, flawed, but telling the truth. The baby kicked hard as if demanding I choose. I steadied my breath. Then prove it. Stand with me. Against Dana. Against Shane. Publicly. His eyes met mine. For the first time in months, they didn't look away. "I will," he said. "I'll expose him." That night, alone in the dim light, I wrote Shane's name on a piece of paper and stared at it until the letters blurred. He wasn't just a footnote, he was the twist no one saw coming. And now, the fight wasn't just about stolen signatures or hidden clauses. It was about betrayal inside the very family I once thought I belonged to. Theo was the last person I expected to see on my doorstep. It was late, rain tapping against the windows, my swollen ankles propped on a pillow, when the knock came. I opened the door to find him standing there, soaked through, his blazer clinging to him like regret. "Can I come in?" he asked. I hesitated. "Does Evan know you're here?" "No." His eyes were raw, restless. "Please." I stepped aside. He walked into my small apartment like a man who'd just realized the ground beneath him was hollow. "I need to tell you something," he said, voice shaking. "And I don't know if you'll believe me." I folded my arms over my belly. "Try me." He swallowed. "I was at Evan's office today. His assistant handed me a stack of mail by mistake. There was an envelope addressed to Dana, but it wasn't sealed. Inside, he pulled a folder from under his jacket, damp but intact. These. He laid the papers on my table. I leaned forward, heart pounding. Photocopies, contracts, signatures, and one page that made my blood run cold. Custodial transfer agreement, recipient, Shane Carter. My name was there. Evans. Both forged. At the bottom, a notation prepared under advisement of D. Keller, Director of Operations. I looked up. Theo's eyes glistened. "He didn't tell me, Lena. Evan never told me about the embryos, about you carrying one. I found out with the rest of the world. But this." He tapped the page, his finger trembling. "This isn't just shady paperwork. This is fraud, and it's tied directly to Shane." I sat back, dizzy. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I love Evan," Theo whispered. His voice cracked on the word. "But I won't stand by while his brother destroys him, or you, or that child." His gaze flicked to my belly. "You deserve protection, and Evan deserves the truth." I searched his face, trying to find the catch, but all I saw was a man torn between love and conscience. "Why not go to him?" I asked. "I tried," Theo admitted. "He wouldn't listen. He thinks he can handle Shane privately, keep it out of the press. But Shane doesn't want quiet. He wants control. He's already talking to people, investors, clinics. If this goes through, you could lose everything." The baby shifted, pressing against my ribs. My chest tightened. "So what do we do?" Theo exhaled, relief flickering that I hadn't thrown him out. "We go public, not with rumors, with this, with evidence. You hold a press conference, not as the desperate ex-wife, as the mother carrying life and the victim of fraud." I shook my head. "The press already painted me a villain." "Then flip the script," he said fiercely. "You have what they don't, proof, documents, dates, signatures. If you show them first, Dana and Shane can't spin it." Silence swelled between us. The rain beat harder. Finally, I whispered, "And Evan?" Theo's mouth trembled. "If I do this, I might lose him, but if I don't, I'll lose myself." For a moment, I saw the strength in him, the kind I used to wish Evan had. Not silence, not avoidance, action. I placed a hand over the papers. "Then we do it together." Theo nodded, a tear slipping free. "Tomorrow." That night, long after you left, I sat at the table with the folder open, staring at the names forged where mine should have been. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a shadow. I felt like the storm itself, waiting to break. The day of the press conference, I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me in the mirror. Gone were the baggy sweaters and tear-streaked cheeks. Sophie had insisted on helping me get ready. She braided my hair back from my face, dabbed foundation over the shadows under my eyes, and pressed a soft rose lipstick into my hand. "You don't need armor," she said. "You just need clarity." I wore a dark green dress that hugged my belly, the fabric flowing instead of hiding. It wasn't a disguise. It was a statement. I wasn't ashamed of carrying this child. I wasn't the villain they painted me to be. I was a mother. And mothers fight. Theo stood waiting by the lobby doors of the community center we'd rented. He looked nervous, tie askew, but when he saw me, his shoulders dropped with relief. "You look unstoppable," he whispered. "Good," I said. "That's exactly what I need to be." The room inside buzzed with reporters, cameras, microphones, notebooks poised. A week ago, I had been their prey. Today, I was the story's author. I walked to the podium. The crowd hushed, lights flared. "My name is Lena Morris," I began. My voice shook for only a second. Then it steadied. I am 8 months pregnant with a child conceived through IVF. This child is not an accident, not a scandal, not a bargaining chip. This child is my choice, my hope, my future. Cameras clicked, rapid fire. Recently, I continued, false documents were created in an attempt to transfer embryos without my consent. Signatures were forged, mine and my ex-husband's. These documents were authorized by North Shore Fertility's Director of Operations, Dana Keller, with the intended recipient listed as Shane Carter. The room rippled with shock. Reporters leaned forward, pens scratching. I held up the photocopies Theo had given me. Here is the evidence: chain of custody logs, courier requests, forged signatures. This is fraud. This is theft, and it will not stand. My voice rose, sharper now. I was humiliated in this very city, painted as desperate, manipulative, unworthy. But the truth is simple. I am a woman protecting her child, and I will not be silenced. Flashbulbs exploded, questions flew, but I raised a hand. No, let me finish. I looked straight into the nearest camera, imagining Dana watching somewhere in her pristine office. North Shore Fertility betrayed me, Dana Keller betrayed me, and Shane Carter, who is not and never will be the father of my child, attempted to steal what was never his. I will fight them in court, in public, wherever I have to. Because this isn't just about me, it's about every woman who has ever been told she doesn't have a voice. Applause broke out, from Sophie in the back, from Theo standing just off stage, even from some reporters who had come only for blood. For the first time in months, I felt taller than the shame that had weighed me down. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Evan appeared at the edge of the room. He looked at me differently this time, not like a ghost, not like a mistake, like an equal. "You were incredible," he said quietly. I met his eyes, steady. "This is just the beginning. We're going to court, Evan, and you're either standing with me, or you're in the way." His jaw clenched. Then he nodded. "With you." Theo stepped beside him, his gaze soft but resolute. For the first time, the three of us stood in alignment, not as rivals, but as reluctant allies, bound by a truth too heavy to deny. I placed a hand on my belly, feeling the baby shift. "Then let's finish this." Walking out into the sunlight, cameras still flashing, I felt it, the shift. No longer the ex-wife, no longer the desperate woman hiding behind curtains. I was the storm, and for the first time everyone could see it. The courthouse smelled of dust and polished wood, the kind of place where lives are rearranged with a gavel. I sat at the plaintiff's table, swollen belly pressing against the edge, Sophie behind me like a silent guardian. Evan sat beside me this time, not across. Theo was there too, watching with steady eyes. For weeks we'd been preparing, gathering every log, every forged page, every trail Dana and Shane thought they'd buried. Now it was all coming into the light. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair pulled tight, called the session to order. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the benches were full. Reporters scribbling, patients from North Shore clutching each other's hands, strangers who wanted to see if justice had teeth. "Case number 3487, the clerk announced. Morris versus North Shore Fertility et al. The et al. Was Dana Keller and Shane Carter. Dana entered in her navy suit, expression smooth as glass. Shane strutted behind her in a tailored jacket, cocky grin plastered on his face like he was walking into a business deal. He glanced at me, winked, my stomach turned. The evidence unfolded like a script. Sophie testified first, explaining the falsified digital logs, the forged signature, the courier request naming Shane as recipient. She spoke clearly, firmly, her eyes never leaving Dana's. Theo testified next. He produced the folder he'd found, detailing the custodial transfer agreement with my name forged across it. He spoke about integrity, about love, about refusing to let silence make him complicit. Evan took the stand last. My heart clenched as he raised his hand and swore to tell the truth. He admitted the failures of our marriage, the choices that had led us here. But then his voice sharpened, resolute. "I did not authorize the withdrawal. I did not sign that agreement. My ex-wife and I consented together years ago, and that consent cannot be rewritten by my brother, or by this clinic." Dana shifted in her seat. For the first time, her mask cracked. The defense tried to spin. Clerical errors, misunderstood procedures. But the judge's eyes narrowed with every excuse. Finally, Shane demanded to testify. He swaggered to the stand, smirking. "I only wanted to protect the embryos," he said smoothly. "My brother had moved on, his ex-wife was unstable, emotional. Someone had to step in and make responsible decisions. Responsible decisions? The judge repeated. Her tone could have frozen fire. Yes, Shane said confidently. After all, I'm family. I stood then, against protocol, against advice, against everything. My voice cut through the room. You are not family to this child, I said. My hand rested on my belly, steady. You are nothing but a thief who tried to take what was never yours. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Shane's grin faltered. The judge banged her gavel once, sharp. Order. Sit down, Miss Morris. But let the record show the statement stands. Hours later, the verdict came. The court found North Shore Fertility and Dana Keller guilty of negligence and fraud. The forged documents were declared void. Shane Carter was barred from any future claim over the embryos. His actions referred to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Dana's license would be revoked. Shane would face charges. And me? I was declared the sole guardian of the remaining embryos, with Evan retaining only advisory rights, not control. The gavel fell. Justice carved into wood. Outside, the press swarmed. But this time, I wasn't hiding. I stood on the courthouse steps, Evan and Theo on either side. Microphones thrust forward. What do you want to say, Miss Morris? A reporter called. I lifted my chin. That truth matters. That women are not silent vessels, that families are built on love, not lies, and that my child will grow up knowing their mother fought and won. The crowd erupted in questions, cameras flashing, but for once I didn't feel hunted. I felt seen. Weeks later, after the headlines shifted and the city moved on, I sat in the nursery I had painted pale yellow. The crib stood ready, tiny clothes folded in drawers. A quiet peace hummed through the room. My mother sat in the rocker, knitting, smiling soft. Sophie visited often, bringing groceries, laughter. Even Evan came by, careful, respectful, slowly learning how to be part of our child's life without taking. Theo too, gentle, grounded, proof that love could heal in unexpected ways. And me? I wasn't the same woman who once crumbled under shame. I had walked through fire, and I was still standing. The baby kicked, strong and certain. I placed both hands on my belly and whispered, "We did it." When the time came, I knew I would bring this child into a world that had tried to break me and failed. Because justice wasn't just a verdict in court. It was this, a new life, a new beginning, born from truth. People always ask me what happened after. After the trial, after the headlines faded, after Shane's smirk disappeared from the newspapers. The truth is, life doesn't snap back to normal after a storm. It reshapes itself. Dana's fall was swift. Her license revoked, her name dragged through every medical ethics board in the state. North Shore Fertility issued apologies, but apologies don't erase scars. Patients fled. The clinic that once sold hope became a cautionary tale. Shane faced charges for fraud and forgery. Last I heard, he took a plea deal. No more startups, no more smooth smiles on magazine covers, just probation, restitution, and a reputation burned to ash. Evan stayed in the city. For a while we circled each other, careful, awkward. He apologized more than once, but not with grand speeches. Just small actions. Showing up when I needed a ride to the doctor. Buying groceries without asking. Sitting in silence when words were too sharp. Theo became my unexpected ally. He checked in often, never overstepping, always kind. Sometimes I wondered if fate had tangled our lives not to break me, but to teach me that love wears many faces. Not just the one I thought I'd married. And me? I gave birth to a baby boy on a quiet morning in late spring. The sun was rising, the world washed gold, when his first cry cut through the room. I held him against my chest, tears streaming, whispering, "You're safe. You're mine." I named him Gabriel, after my father, after strength. The day I brought him home, my apartment felt too small for the enormity of what I carried. But when I rocked him in the pale yellow nursery, when his tiny fingers wrapped around mine, I knew I didn't need more. I just needed this. Yes, the world had tried to humiliate me. Yes, betrayal had come from places I never expected. But in the end, I stood tall. I told my story. I fought for my child, and I won. Sometimes I still see cameras when I close my eyes. Sometimes I still hear whispers of the woman they called desperate. But then Gabriel laughs, pure and untainted, and all of it dissolves. Because justice wasn't only in the verdict, it was in the life I built after. I am Lena Morris, once a wife, once a shadow, now a mother. And this is only the beginning.